me about Zombie Run.
Essentially set up an obstacle course for zombies and runners. And the whole concept was you're always faster when you're chased. And the more chaotic the situation, the calmer I become. And we're like, okay, like we know that we have, 8 staff with walkie-talkies. We have 3 golf carts, and we know that we have a medical emergency here, here, and here. You don't need to wait for an investor. You don't need to go big for capital. You could generate this capital on your own. And ultimately, you can really start the business and make money in a month. If you're coming in to the equation with customers, the investors will follow. Like if you already
100%.
have a proof of concept that's working, it's a lot easier to get some capital behind that.
You're listening to Time Compass, a compass for leaders navigating uncharted waters. Time Compass is where visionaries, thinkers, and changemakers come to share the stories and tools that shape their path. Hosted by me, Bud Leiser, each episode captures the transformative conversations rooted in personal growth, business wisdom, and conscious leadership. Whether you're scaling a company, pivoting your purpose, or seeking clarity in chaos, this podcast offers grounded insight and expansive thinking to guide you forward. All right. Hey, David Feinman, welcome to the show. Today on the Time Compass Show, we're joined by David Feinman, co-founder and CEO of Viral Ideas, the Philadelphia-based productized video editing agency that makes creativity simple, impactful, and scalable. Over the past decade, Viral Ideas has directed, produced, and edited thousands of videos for brands such as eBay and Johnson & Johnson, proving that great storytelling can be both artful and repeatable. David's entrepreneurial streak began in high school, where he organized a community half marathon from scratch, learning early how to marry logistics with compelling promotion. A few years later, he launched the Zombie Run, one of the first nationwide 5K obstacle races that gamified fitness by immersing runners in a post-apocalyptic chase. Both ventures cemented his knack for creating experiences that spread organically online. He has since grown Viral Ideas into a 7-figure operation powered by a global team of editors, project managers, and AI-enhanced workflows that transform raw footage into scroll-stopping content at speed. Let's dive into some of his experiences in this episode. Welcome, David.
Bud, thank you so much. It was a great intro. Appreciate being here and grateful to talk to someone on the other side of the world. It's going to be a fun podcast.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Fantastic. You're still in Philadelphia.
Yes, absolutely. City of brotherly love and Eagles fans.
I'm all the way here in Bali, completely other side of the world and completely different temperatures, but it's great to have you on the show. And thank you for being up this late.
No, it's all good. This is a nice end to the day.
Listen, I want to talk about a bunch of things, including your personal journey and the accomplishments that you've had. As I was even reading through your intro, I didn't realize that you had started a community for half marathons. What does this say, in high school before you did the Zombie Run? I thought the Zombie Run was sort of like the first thing, but you obviously got that idea later. And on the show, we're really trying to connect with other business leaders and help them understand, or future business leaders, and share that it's not always easy, that some things are just really, really hard and they set you back. But before we get to that type of stuff, let's talk about Zombie Run. I mean, I think that's going to be a really big topic or of interest, because I remember that I was in Orlando, Florida, I think at the time, and I thought that was such an amazing idea. And then I sort of never really heard about it after a while, and I think there's a bunch of copycats. And by the way, there is actually a copycat or inspired event here in Jakarta, which I just learned about. But tell me about Zombie Run.
Yeah, so that was one of the first like real business ventures that I got started with, and obviously I had some stuff in high school, and was entrepreneurial growing up. And to be honest with you, I didn't ever think I'd be an entrepreneur for like a lifelong career. But we can get to that later. But to
Sure.
take you back in time, like I had always had a passion for running and endurance sports. A friend and a friend of mine and I, created this race that essentially set up an obstacle course for zombies and runners. And the whole concept was you're always faster when you're chased. And the idea was you ran through this obstacle course filled with zombies, and it was made to look like a Hollywood set. And you ran across it, and the zombies had to capture a flag off of your belt. And that flag was
Some
taken.
gamification to it.
It was some gamification, right? So like you would run through and you would have to try to keep your lives, which were your flag. And you could go to certain medical stations, and you could get some more lives as you went through. And the whole thing was based around like a narrative. So we studied like the way Walt Disney built rides and the way Walt Disney like introduced characters. And we studied zombie movies to figure out like how to create the best archetypal experience for someone that was going through a zombie race. And we did, and we were pretty successful with it around the country, and tons of people did it. And it was a good fun while it lasted. And I put that together while when I was in college, and eventually started to move on to my current thing after that.
That's really, really cool. I mean, that's just amazing. But also, I think what could be equally amazing is the fact that you were able to sell that at the right time, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think a part of that was just luck. I was a rising junior in college, as was my business partner, and ultimately, like we had two diverging paths, right? One was finishing college and doing that whole thing, and the other was like doubling down and like going all in to build the zombie run. And ultimately, we both decided that it would be the wisest move for us to just go to college and finish that up. So I like to say that it was a smart time to sell it. However, I think it was just mostly luck and personal timing more than anything else.
That's great. Not every business owner and successful person I've met is as humble enough to admit when they got lucky and when winning. So that's good on you, man. And that speaks to your character.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. And how long was it from Zombie Run to Viral Ideas?
We'll see what, but after that, I sold that. I went to school and I, started having a great time in college. I started thinking about what I wanted to do next, right? I was never someone who was great at school, like never clicked for me either in high school or in college. But I was always like a voracious reader. I was known in college for the guy that like if you went in my college room, there was a stack of books from the bottom of the floor top of my ceiling. Still to this day, like if you're watching this on video, there's like stacks of books behind me. I have hundreds more in front of me. I see you're also a reader too, which is awesome.
Yes.
But I was always someone who liked to learn and liked to read. And I after college, I was like, I am never going to start another business again. Like I was like, I vowed to it, right? Like I knew the stress of it, like I knew the pressure of it, and I knew what it took. So I started interviewing for some jobs, and I was doing some like consulting work on the side, and this was like while I was in school, and I ultimately stumbled into a job interview with Google, and I went through the first round of interviews. It's okay. I went through the second round of interviews. I'm like, yeah, I think I could do this corporate thing, but if I'm going to do it, like I'm going to buy an RV with my sign-on bonus, and I'm going to go live in the parking lot in Google, right? Like that was going to be my thing. Like I thought of like a way I can create. I think I got to the third round. I'm like, I looked at the person that was interviewing me, and I'm like, good on them that they like this, but I don't think I can do this. I don't think I can work in this corporate environment. Simultaneously, at the same time, I was the consulting practice I was doing started building up a little bit more, and one client was turning into two was turning into three, and me and a buddy started working together. Zach was my co-founder, and we decided like we sort of I decided that going the corporate route wasn't for me, and like if I looked out in my life 10 years from now, like that's not where I wanted to be. I wanted to be like running a business, and ultimately decided to just like start and started small, like started with really like one official customer in the business Viral Ideas that I run today, and managed to convince that customer to pay for 3 months of service, which at the time was $9,000 upfront, and use that money to like incorporate the business and
All right.
and like build the legal structure of it, and then use like the other half of money to like fulfill the order. And it's started to work, right? Like one customer turned into two, turned into three, turned into four, and the business.
I want to pause here.
Was born.
I want to pause here for just a second because you actually breezed through a really great piece of advice for listeners, right? Who haven't started a business yet. So you weren't incorporated. You didn't sign. You didn't have maybe. I don't know. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but maybe there wasn't like a super detailed research business plan, 30, 40 pages with projections and a business loan and a corporation and all these other things before you got your first customer, right? And so you've already tested the market by finding a customer, securing some cash, and then you use that money to build the business, right? Or how much of what I said is right? And I think that's a great way for people to start.
Exactly. that's exactly what it is. And but I actually had a friend that called me the other day, and he was talking about how he's going to start a business and how, this business is going to take, $500,000 and, to start the business. And, I was tearing through the financials with him. And ultimately I looked at him and I said, you know how much risk you're going to take by doing this? I was like, you haven't validated this concept. You haven't gone through and started the business in a very light way to start to build a following and build a customer base before you actually start spending real money. I was like, for $0, you could start a version of this business that gets you customers, gets you money in the door, gets you proof of concept. And then if you want to go do the big thing, great, go raise the $500,000 or go to a bank and put together a business plan for it. And it'll be that much more strong. You can go in with your pitch and say, hey, by the way, this is not just an idea on paper. This is something that I've tested by doing these 6 things. I've already made, $70,000 off of this over the past year, and I've only, I'm working my full-time job still. I'm doing this a little bit on the side. And I always encourage people. And I said to him, I was like, this is it. This is something that you can start with no money. You don't need to wait for someone else to tell you that your idea is valid. You don't need to wait for a bank. You don't need to wait for an investor. You don't need to go big for capital. You could generate this capital on your own, and ultimately you can really start the business and make money in a month. And I always encourage new entrepreneurs when they're first getting started to find a way to be profitable, in their first month of business, because, coming from, I had a huge advantage. I started when I was super young. I started when I was 21. I had no overhead. I could live on $500 a month. Like
Right.
that was my monthly expenses at the time. Right? I was able to, at 21 years old, live at home for 2 years whilst my business was getting started. I was able to then move out and find an apartment with 4 bedrooms with, a 5-bedroom house with 4 guys packed into it, and that had mice in the basement, and be okay with that, like, early on. Right. So
Yes.
and you always have to play your hand. Like, that was my hand then, but your hand now might be, okay, like I could take some risk. I could put $10,000 into this thing, but you don't want to put yourself out of business before you start. To me, if you can get profitable in the first month, that's great. You can replace what would have been your corporate job very quickly, way quicker than you think. And I think that's sort of the first goal when someone is starting out. Like, if you're a new entrepreneur, is, if you can, your goal is to just make, if you're going to that zero to one entrepreneurship route, which is definitely, I think, the hardest way to do entrepreneurship. If you're going that route, your goal is to make money as quickly as possible and to get customers in the door, because you could always change the product. You can always, turn things around later
Sure.
on.
You could do all this planning in the world, and then, I mean, sometimes this is a good thing. Sometimes 6 months later, you discover a better idea. Well, that's fine, but how much paperwork and how much loans and investors are you now throwing away or redoing because you didn't test the market and you could have got started sooner? And I think people can get stuck with analysis paralysis. And some people don't plan enough, and some people plan too much, and so they have to figure that out. But it can be hard to raise money, right? It can be a full-time job chasing investors to raise money. And at some point you have to look back and go, wouldn't it have just been easier to just sell a customer and get actual profit instead of constantly talking to investors?
And at the end of the day, if you're coming in to the equation with customers, the investors will follow. Like if you already
100%.
have a proof of concept that's working, it's a lot easier to get some capital behind that if you need it, to build your business.
Yeah, it's 100% true. I did forget a question I want to circle back on. How long did you run Zombie Run?
I ran Zombie Run for 9 months before selling it. It was a very quick,
Wow. Very quick turnaround.
rise, and then a very quick sale.
Can you share how much you sold it for?
Um, we did okay with the exit. It wasn't like anything too crazy when we
Okay.
sold it.
Okay. But that's fantastic. A 9-month launch and then exit has got to be one of the fastest that I've certainly talked to. That's great. What was the most chaotic behind the scenes disaster during a race that the 35,000 runners didn't know about?
We had one race that was incredibly hot out. Like it was in Atlanta, Georgia, and the weather had to be it had to feel like 115 degrees out.
Oh,
Like we catered towards this very unique audience combination of like zombie enthusiasts and runners, but some were zombie enthusiasts and some were runners, right? So there's like like two of them. And what was really inspirational was it was their first 5K. It was their first time doing a race. What that created in a very hot environment was a bunch of people doing their first race in a hot environment. And unfortunately, we had a lot of medical issues, right? Like people having heat exhaustion and heat stroke. And we had probably 30 medical calls for a 10-person medical team. So we ended up having to like triage and like very quickly figure out and use our staff running around with golf carts to pick up people that were suffering from heat exhaustion during that event. And it was tough. It was very, very tough, and it was a challenge for our team as well. But everyone was fine. Ultimately everyone was fine.
What was going through your mind at that time as that was happening? What were your thoughts?
I even to this day thrive under chaos. The more chaotic the situation, the calmer I become. So what was going through my head was just like, okay, how do I block and tackle in solving this problem? I looked at what are my current resources and what are the bottlenecks in the system as they are. So I like kind of zoomed out from it, and we're like, okay, like we know that we have 8 staff with walkie-talkies, we have 3 golf carts, and we know that we have a medical emergency here, here, and here. So I just started triaging the situation and like moving people to where the bottlenecks were, and just we started to realize that okay, like there was medical emergencies going on at the event from people that were heat exhausted, and we needed to like our medical team, that we had like a stationary medical team at the start and finish area. So we ended up just saying, hey, why don't you stay still, and like we'll keep moving people back and forth. And what happens is a couple of people did actually have to go to the hospital, and what we did was we ended up we just called 911. We called an ambulance. We called a department because we needed more medical staff quickly. So it was just like very quick problem solving of like things that we could do to help the situation in as fast a way as possible. We called in reinforcements. We called in, we did what we could do to help the situation. And, ultimately most people were just like a little tired and a little exhausted and like weren't seriously medically hurt. But a few of them were like, having a little bit more of a situation where they might have needed to go to a hospital. And I think at the same time, like one lady tripped and like hurt her ankle or something. So like there was just a lot going on at once in that situation.
Emotionally, when you were in that chaos, were you feeling the emotions, or do you detach? And then did you have a bottleneck of emotions later? Or how do you respond in that type of situation? Because it sounds like you're a pretty good leader. You said you're calm under pressure. You get more calm. You figure out the logistics and just start tackling things. But emotionally, how do you react?
Yeah, we have an expression at my company, Viral Ideas, right now, and that expression is "be the rock," right? And be the rock. The expression stems from actually my grandfather, right? My grandfather was always like a rock in my life, in a lot of members of my family's life, and he was someone that like was always calm, cool, collected, right? And I think ultimately that expression just means that if you look to the person to your right and look to the person on your left, your goal is to be their support system and be someone that is there for them in their time of need. And I just simply view like pressure, right, and things that go wrong as an opportunity for me to test my ability to be the rock, right, and to stay calm and to stay cool headed under those pressures. And I don't always get it right, right? Like while sometimes I'll like lose it a little bit or like lose my cool, but ultimately, like I think what a lot of my employees tell you is like you could literally tell me anything and I'll have the same exact expression, no matter what. Like obviously, if you win, I'm gonna react with joy, but like you could tell me something horrible that happened, and I'm usually pretty unflinching, even if even if it's something that isn't. And I think that's so important as a leader, right? Because ultimately, one of the hardest things to get as your company gets bigger is the truth from your employees, because they're always trying to impress you, or they're always trying to tell you a story or something like that. And I can tell you that like my staff does not sugarcoat things with me. Like if something is a certain way, they will just straight tell me like that something is going wrong, and they know they can come to me. I'm not going to
That's
react. I'm not
actually
going to get
that's
angry.
actually a hard culture to build. So congratulations on having teammates who can tell it to you straight. How
Yeah,
big is your team now?
we're 45 people.
That's fantastic. That's actually an important number. I was working at a game studio and I got there. They'd done their 0 to 1. They launched a successful product. They were making about $1 million a year off of that one product. but they had scaled rapidly from 4 to 10 and then from 10 to 50. And then when I got there, you could see the growing pains. I think this is good information for small business owners. When you have less than 20 people, you can really be on a first name basis with everybody. You can
Oh my
maybe
God, yeah.
remember their birthdays. You can really connect with everybody. And as you start to scale to 40 and 50, plus your turnover, right? Not everybody stays forever, so you're gaining new faces and losing some faces. It's a lot harder. And even if you as the CEO, maybe you, David, you know all of your employees, but do all of your employees know all your other employees? It's a different environment, right? And that's a real challenge scaling from 20 to 50, and you're right in the mix of it at 45. You're right in the heat of it. Were there any growing pains for you along the way? Hi, I'm Bud Leiser, host of the Time Compass Show. As an SMB leader, do you feel that recruiting drags on, salaries keep rising, and your team is already stretched thin? And what if your best employee quit today? You need a backup plan, my friend. Your local talent is scarce, and those costs keep rising. Did you try outsourcing and remote staffing before, and it didn't work? That's because they promised you associate level talent, but secretly hire fresh graduates and sold them to learn on your dime. But not with us. We specialize in staffing professionals with over 5 years of real industry experience. Think about it. No more juniors means no more babysitting for you. Less time onboarding, less time training, and faster team integration. Imagine no additional tax forms, insurance forms, and labor compliance with your next hires. And did you know that staffing with us can save you 30% just on federal taxes and employee benefits? So what are you waiting for? Are you ready to start saving time and money? Then schedule a call today and let's become your top choice for top global talent. Just go to budleiser.com and click outsource. That's BUDLEISER.com.
Oh my gosh, of course. So many war stories, but I agree with that statement, right? Like, when you're somewhere between 1 and 20 employees, you do know everyone's name, you know some of their stories, maybe not every single person's story, but you know who they are. You probably hired most of them yourself. And like at 45, like I don't hire a chunk of the employees anymore. Like a couple categories of employees in my business. Mostly the video editors, like we're a video editing business. Most of the video editors, we don't. I don't personally hire them anymore. So I think it's important to, like, your job as a leader, as you scale up in the business, is to lead the leaders, right, and to empower them to then lead to lead people. And like as the layers of management build, like you're leading leaders that are leading leaders, right? Like becomes almost like a pyramid, and you have to really it's all about looking inward, right? It's not about pointing fingers. It's like the business is not going to scale past your own issues, right? So that's why I think like entrepreneurship in itself is the greatest self-development project you can ever embark on, because you're if you want to grow, if you want to stay at the same level, fine. You're not, like, it's not the greatest self-development project ever, right? Like the business will only rise to your own incompetencies. And there's this great poem that a mentor of me shared with it's Kipling's If, and it's Man in the Glass, it's called.
Mm-hmm.
And the Man in the Glass poem talks about, like, if um basically the person staring back at you is the person that you have to contend with in your life. And I think at the end of the day, when you're running a company, you are going to have to manage your own emotions really, really well. You're going to have to manage your own psychology really, really well. And you're going to have to ensure that you are not the problem for scale in the business. Over time, I've had to unlearn what I've previously learned, and I'm constantly relearning new stuff that is letting me be the future version of myself that I'm hoping to create. It's very quick. When you get what you want in your struggle for self, the world makes you king for the day. Then you go to the mirror, look at yourself, and see what that man has to say. For isn't it a father, mother, or wife whose judgment upon him must pass? The fellow whose verdict counts most in life is the man staring back from the glass. So, I mean, and then it goes on to talk more, and it's all about like that internal, like internalizing stuff. And I think during different phases of life, you can get more different things out of those particular words.
That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that on their show. I love it. Walk me back to maybe the early days of viral ideas, maybe a couple years after it started. Was there any really big hurdle or obstacle? I'll share one of mine. A couple years ago, I started a software studio, and I made a typical blunder of scaling up too fast, thinking that I needed, every role needed a person, and we grew really fast. And unfortunately, I got betrayed by one of my partners who then he literally used resources to build his own company and steal clients and stuff like that. And, you know, that's part of the reason I started the show was because I had read tons of books. I had read all this information on sales, on marketing, on writing a business plan, and all these other things. And I don't remember a single book talking about identifying and handling betrayal from within, which I think is probably a lot more common than not in startups. Has anything similar happened to you, or what has been the biggest setback in the early days of your company?
Yeah, there was this, a few years back. I actually almost lost everything, right? So, and the what happened was I partnered with the wrong person,
Mm,
and the person that I partnered with, ultimately we were funding the build out of the expansion of this business, and ultimately what happened was the person decided that I was no longer a important part of the partnership, and ended up walking away with the clients and the people, and all that stuff. And
shit.
um we invested all this time and energy into it, and ultimately, like after that, our business sort of went down to zero. And I learned a lot about like the motivations of people through that. um Also, I learned a lot about like picking yourself back up after that. And ultimately, I was sitting on a park bench after this all happened with my business partner. I
Mm,
said, he's like, well, we were talking like, what are we going to do? Right. Like, what do we do now? Like, there's no playbook for what happens on day two of this. And I said to him, I said, hey, there's only two choices here. There's only two choices. Either A, we can quit. It's an option. We can quit. We can walk away. Or option B, which I think will be the fun hero's journey story. And if we look back in 5 years and decide to take this option, I think we're going to be really, really happy by the fact that we're taking it. And this option is to keep going and to keep fighting and to go in one more round. That's what we ultimately did. And we ultimately decided to go in one more round. And we found that it was like much quicker to do it again because we knew exactly where all the landmines were. And
mm.
we've built ourselves into this company. And I always say, like when people ask me like, are you mad about that? And I say, no, I am actually grateful that this person did what they did. I could turn around and like look you in the eye and and say that with full confidence, because without that, I wouldn't be the person I am today. Truly, I would not be able to show up in the way that I show up. I would not be able to you know what I know now without having gone through that. So I'm super grateful for it at the end of the day. And I think I'm glad it happened when it did. uh, at the end of the day, um, I think the people are measured by how many more rounds they can fight in, not the rounds that they lost.
I do agree with it's better for it to happen earlier rather than happen later. Like if the same thing happened, I don't know, 1, 2, 5 years ago, 5 years later, then it could be even more clients and more money and more of a waste of time. For me, that was one of the biggest problems. It was I've made money and lost money. I've traded stocks and options and crypto. I can don't want to brag, and this isn't a brag at all, but I'm just not. I can be emotionally detached from huge losses of money, but it was the time and investment of dealing with a person. So now I have a saying, which is I took from my days at working at the hardware store and driving a forklift. I was asked, why do we drive? The instructions say to keep the forklift like pointed all the way down to the floor to the point where it's like scraping, and you can see huge chunks are missing out of the forks, and eventually you got to replace the forks. And I was like, why do we always have to drive like this when we're not lifting something? He goes, well, it's not for the forklift. It's because if anybody were to walk out, come around a corner and step in front of the forklift, better they lose a toe than a foot, better they lose a foot than an ankle, better to lose an ankle than a knee. And so that's why we keep the forks as close to the ground as possible. And I've adopted the same line for life events. If a friend betrays me, if a business partner steps out, betrays, whatever, if somebody doesn't work out, I say, great. I'm glad it happened now instead of 1 year later, 5 years later, 10 years later. I'd rather lose the toe than lose the foot than lose the ankle. So I have a similar thing. But when you went back in this moment, it sounded like you guys bounced back really quickly. But did you really? I mean, and what were the emotions that you were going through? And was it a slow climb back up? How difficult was it? Both, financially, but emotionally.
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't want to paint like a completely rosy picture of the climb back up, right? Like it wasn't like we um decided to do it, then put on an Iron Man suit and went and flew into the night. It was, nights, sleepless nights of anxiety of like, hey, is this going to still work?
Mm.
Right? I never doubted the decision to go back in. Like, just to be clear, like I never like once had a bit of self doubt. It was just like, it was a lot like of anxiety, right? Of like, oh my gosh, like, and like beating yourself up a bit and, just deciding like, okay, like I am more than this, right? Like I'm capable of more than this. Eventually, what we lost will be but a blip on the radar of what we could do. And like, I always just sort of say like one day, I will I will make in a day what I lost in doing that. And
Right.
every year that goes by, that seemingly that paradox gets seemingly closer and closer. Um, and I think ultimately I think it's all about sort of redefining and relearning who you are capable of when things like that happen. So, for me, yeah, I mean, like anxiety. I would wake up in the middle of the night like multiple times. I couldn't sleep, right? Like,
Mm.
like it haunted
Same.
me for a while, and I felt, but the feeling of betrayal is deep. But I think holding on to that feeling hurts you more than it uh, more
Benefits
than
you.
it helps you. There's
Right.
no benefit to it. And I think the day I decided to let go of it was the day I decided to, was the day I started to grow, and the day that I decided to not hold on to anger from it, but to consider it a moment of gratitude was the day that you see like a sharp, like if you look at the financial charts, like, emotionally I was like reveling, let go of it, drop some of the legal stuff. And then I was like, okay, now we're off to the races.
That sharp, that quickly, or
That quickly, within
that
the month,
transformation was there.
within the month. Yeah.
That's fantastic, and that's a difficult transformation to go through. I don't know if you know that, but there's a lot of people who lose their identity. I think I had a guest on recently, and they use a word that I have a hard time, but it's a familial shift. I'm going to butcher that, but there's these key moments, these key shifts that happen in our lives, maybe every 10 or 20 years, and we talked about how that type of setback can put people into a downward spiral with alcoholism, drugs, loss of identity. But coming through it, you can also transform and be a different version of yourself. And letting go of that, and then rocking back up and getting those clients and having positive attitude, that's amazing. And I want to focus in here, but you were saying that when you were holding on to that anger, your income stayed flat. And when you let go of that anger, your income took off. And I'm guessing that's because maybe clients were picking up on some of that negative energy, or what?
I would say it's less about the negative energy and it's more where you're putting your energy, right? Like,
Mm.
you know, you, and yes, people do pick up on energy and they pick up on a vibe, but I think at the end of the day, if you're going to put your energy into reveling, and how could they, and that negative energy, you're not going to get anything positive from that. Where if you put your energy
Mm.
into building, I've always been someone who's like since I was a kid, I've always been a builder, right? Like always like playing with Legos and blocks when I was younger, and always like to build little home movies with my friends. And putting energy into building is so energetically positive. Building relationships, building a business, it's like in my opinion, it's what gives me life, like it's what breathes life into me, like building things and archetyping things. And I think at the end of the day, but by doing that and by putting energy into building versus putting energy into something negative, you're not by like just sheer force of nature, you're going to build, right? Like you're going something's
Mm.
good, something good is going to happen. And I think that's sort of what happened in my journey is by letting go of what didn't serve me anymore, it made space for what could serve me.
That's fantastic. And thank you for sharing that with us.
Appreciate
I
it.
want to talk
Appreciate
to
it.
you. Yeah. I want to talk to you about, some of your clients. And I want to ask, you've been at this, I think, 8 years now with Viral Ideas, right?
11.
11 years. My
Yes.
information is outdated. 11 years you've been doing this. What was the hardest no you ever had to give to a big client?
Ooh, that's a good question. There's never really a hard. I've never had a big hard no that I've ever had to tell a client. Because at the end of the day, if you set expectations really well up front with clients, it's not hard to tell them no when they overstep. And it's not so much overstepping as hey, this is a mutually beneficial relationship. One at which like I need to make money and you need to make money off of what I'm doing. And here's how we work so that I make money. And if that works for you, then let's go. Let's proceed from here. And I think if you lay things out pretty simply like that to customers, they understand. And I have fired a few clients over the years.
Mm-hmm.
And generally what will get a client fired from my book is if they are cruel to my team, right?
Sure.
And disrespectful to my team. And there's been a couple clients over the years where I've had to call them up, and I've the conversation usually goes something like this: "Hey, client, how's it going? I just want to let you know that your behavior is a little bit unacceptable, and I heard about this. I just want to ask you like one simple question: like, are you okay?" And sometimes clients will be like, "No, I'm not okay. I'm going through a divorce. Da, 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 da. I took it out on your team. That's not fair." And they'll apologize, and we'll move on. But sometimes the reaction to that question can be them yelling at me, and at that point, the client is done. That sometimes I wouldn't even consider that a hard no either, because at the end of the day, you have to protect, as an entrepreneur and as a business owner and as a leader, you have to protect your team. It's key. You have to make sure that they're coming into a safe environment to work every single day, where they feel
100%.
cared for and where they feel like, they feel like they could thrive in the best way possible.
I agree with that. And, especially if your company relies on talented individuals and not just, day workers, building that talent, that's a lot of time, a lot of energy, building that culture, training people, upskilling people. Yeah, 100% you got to protect your talent, right?
100%. And I'll tell you something, like we have probably one of the best teams in the industry. And we have them because every single person in the company cares so deeply about their work. And we have spent years curating and refining out the perfect team. And actually, we haven't had any voluntary attrition in our business in 3 years. Like no one has voluntarily raised their hand and said, "I quit" in our business in 3 years, which I think is a very in days and years where I think a lot of people like quit jobs every couple of years. Like
Sure.
I'm very proud of that statistic. Now, of course, we've let people go for underperformance. That happens, right? Like they don't meet our standard, and I think that helps keep the people around who do hit a certain standard, because you know the thoroughbreds don't want to hang out with the lack of thoroughbreds. Like they don't want to hang out with the donkeys. So you got to make sure you keep the thoroughbreds happy. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a bunch of donkeys in your business.
Is this a Philadelphia saying? I've never heard that one before, but I love it.
It's a Dave Ramsey saying.
That's fantastic. Um, let's talk about mental health, because you seem like you're pretty good at this. What are some of the most effective systems you use to protect your mental health while building and scaling your business?
It's a good question. I think first and foremost, I've never been one to touch a single substance, right? I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do drugs. I
Is
think
David Feinman not fun?
I'm a lot
I'm
of fun.
joking.
I'm just fun.
I'm
I
joking.
just
You're a runner, so that
yeah,
that makes sense. You don't touch the substances.
yeah. So that's not for me. I think some people think it. So some people think like, oh, I can get joy from this, but it's really just like temporary relief a lot of times for a lot of people. So I think that's number one. I think the thing is like having a hobby that feeds both my mind and my body, right? Like one of my hobbies is reading. The other one is like endurance sports, right? So both those will feed my mind and body. Then having healthy relationships around you is important. And I think one of the best ways to have healthy relationships is to be the start of the relationship. Like have events at your house, right? Like put
Mhm.
on something and invite a bunch of people to it. Like, you know, we'll have like, dinners at my house, right? Like pretty regularly, and we'll bring our community together. That enriches your life and improves your mental health, right? You can't just sit in a box all day. So I think a lot of those things are just part of my practice. I also meditate every day, and do that whole thing, once a day, and just taking that quiet moment, not on your phone, just sit with yourself for a little bit, check in. And I think it's also important to feel what you need to feel and like get in touch
Mm,
with emotions that you need to have. I think it's okay to be stoic, but it's also okay to just observe your emotions and realize like, okay, you don't need to let your emotions fly the plane. Like you don't need to let your emotions like
mm.
dictate how you're going to be, right? And how you're going to show up in society. But I think it's good to observe them, right? And just see like, today I was feeling like a little unmotivated, and I said to myself, okay, that's fine. I'm still gonna fly the plane. I'm still gonna show up at a podcast later today. I'm still gonna do the work I need to do. And like at the end of the day, I feel fulfilled because I didn't sink into like a depth of despair, feeling a little bit unmotivated today.
That's fantastic. And I love that saying, don't let your emotions fly the plane.
Yeah, I mean, like if pilots did that, it would be scary. It would be a scary, scary way to travel.
No, actually, I was watching a new podcast, Valor or something, and they have female pilots on there talking about at one point she couldn't that day she couldn't fly the plane. Right? There's so much going on. There's so much at risk. There's other people that you have to take care of on the plane. It's important to know when you're not capable at that time, right? And to do whatever you need to do, remove yourself, meditate, go for a run, all these other things. You can't be on 100% 100% of the time, right? But you also still want to keep pushing forward and feel those accomplishments, especially as a business.
It's also about seeing how much you can carry on your back. And I always like to use that expression of
Mm.
like, how many boulders can you put on your shoulders, right? Like, and how can you show up? How can you show up even when the world is going crazy around you? And how can you kind of put those rocks on your back?
Yeah, that's great. And I know some of your team, if not all of your team, is remote. How do you help your team with these types of emotional troubles, mental thoughts, roadblocks, etc., so that they can keep performing, especially when they're remote, as is the case nowadays. More and more teams, more and more companies are going hybrid, hiring offshore staffing, remote staffing, etc., which we also provide. But how do you, as the team leader, show up for them on these types of obstacles when they're remote?
Yeah, it's a good question, and you don't have to think about, okay, like I have a company of 45 people, and I don't think every day I don't need to, I don't necessarily need to show up and check in with all 45 of my employees, because even if I did that for 5 minutes, it's my whole day, right? Like it's too
Yeah.
much. But what I have to do is I have to be a backstop for my leaders, right? Like I need to show up, and I need to serve the leaders inside my company. And I believe I'm a firm believer in like in the concept of servant leadership. You're there to serve your employees and take care of them, and work with them with a bottom up approach. I think, what I do for my team is, I give them the space to talk, share their ideas, share how they're feeling. I check in with them. I have like a couple little things that I'll do, like, and ask them how things are going, but also allow them to time and opportunity to ask them, hey, like, by the way, I'm here to support you. What do you need? Like, how do you need me? Like, what do you need me to do for you to make sure you
Hmm.
can win? Like, this is what winning looks like. This is we've painted a picture of what winning looks like for both of us. I need you to do this, and you've agreed to do this task really well, and this is what it looks like to win together. So what, in order to, on a weekly, daily, monthly cadence, what, like, how do we set ourselves up to win? And then we check in on that, once a week. We have a weekly cadence. Then, we do all hands meetings, where we talk about stuff in the company, and we let people voice their concerns, right? And at the end of those meetings, right, as leaders, it's so important to ask your team, how valuable was this meeting, right? Like at the end of
Mm.
any meeting, I go to my team, I say, on a scale of 1 to 10, how was this meeting? Be honest with me. If you give me a 1, I'll be
I
really
don't
happy.
I don't think I've ever been asked that by any company ever, but that sounds like a brilliant idea.
I mean, meetings could be the largest waste of time or a huge benefit. You know, all of our meetings that we do regularly consistently score an 8 or above. The team is constantly giving feedback. Hey, in this meeting, I need you to deliver me this, this, and this. I could use a little bit more. Hey, by the way, like, this month has been like, there's been a lot of challenges. We just kind of need a pep talk, right? Like in this meeting. Or sometimes they'll be like, hey, like, I want to know what we're doing with this. Or hey, sometimes like in a meeting that we had earlier in the year, we had a conversation about like, hey, we want to make sure, like one of our core values is commitment to profitability. The team was like, I don't feel like I can live that value without knowing what it means for us to be profitable. Meaning, I have to open up my books and I have to show them how to be profitable. And
Yeah,
one of
that's
our other
right.
core values is transparency, right? Another one of our core values is transparency. It's like, I can't live in those two things at once, right? So it's like, okay, I'm cool exposing myself if people are committing to the core values. So really at the end of the day, it's all about empowering the people to empower the people, right? And if you take care of your, direct line of reports, you don't have to worry about what's underneath that, because that person will then see, and you'll set the standard, you'll set the example, and then that person will take care of the people below them and look up to that leader, and then so on down. So really, you just have to become the person that you need most in life, and if you could become that person, then you'll be able to take care of your employees. We'll take care of each other.
That's fantastic. I think you said something here that might send a shivers up the spine of some of our listeners. The idea of opening up the books and showing employees how profitable the business is could lead to a crabs in a bucket mentality. You know, who's making all this money? Who's making how much? Do you really share this information with your employees? And has there been any problems because of that?
So we'll share it with um, it's layered, right? Like depending on the layer of management, it depends on the access that the management will have. And if there's ever any direct questions, I'm not going to skirt around it and not answer it. So, if an employee asks me like, what is this expense? What do we use it for? I'll just tell them, right? Like, at the end of the day, if you have the right set of employees, the employees want the business to succeed and do well. And you can't, as a business owner, as a business conspirator, you cannot hold on to everything, because if you're holding on to everything, you're actually doing nothing. You're effectively just going around like thinking that you have control over things when you really don't. So it's important to give someone authority and accountability over things, and you can't give someone authority and accountability without giving them information. And showing them the information in the business also allows them to help you correct problems before they become problems. Like, if you hired people to do a job, why wouldn't you tell them how things are going? And oh, by the way, if things are going bad, that's okay too, right? And if things are going really good, then great. Like, and if someone gets the idea that they should be making more money, they're welcome to come and plead their case. But at the end of the day, everyone, at least in my business, knows why they are paid what they are paid, and they know their economic value in their business. And we show them, we're like, hey, this is the value that you're creating, right? Like, I can't pay you 100% of that value, because then I would go out of business. But I can show you how you're creating value in the business, and I can show you how you can create more value. If you create more value in the business, and you create a higher leverage point for yourself, then at the end of the day, you'll be able to grow in our business.
That's great. Do you have any metrics that business owners might be able to apply to their business? How do you create that type of value for a non-salesperson, like for you know, a typical administration or an HR? How do you quantify their value?
Yeah, that's a great question. Every role should have a set of KPIs at the end of the day.
Right.
Every role should have some sort of quantifiable metric on how they are moving the needle in the business. If you're an HR person, how many people are you recruiting? If you're recruiting that many people in the business, right? Like you need to add more business. Like we're on pace for Q1. We're going to hire 8 new employees in Q1 next year. And if you're an HR person in the business, you have a metric that you have to hire this many people, right? Like what is our employee satisfaction? That might be a metric of an HR person, right? Like, and if you're able to measure that, and you're able to determine that employee satisfaction should be this, how many HR complaints do you get, right? Like, do you get 1, 2, 3 a day, 5 a day? We get next to zero because we don't have an HR department. But so but at the end of the day, you want to put metrics to the role that drive your desired outcome, and then you want to reward people based on the metrics that they're driving, right? Like simple, but a lot of business owners don't understand this, right? Like, it's super important to set that up, and there's always a way to quantify it. If you think you can't quantify a role's metric, number one, you probably haven't hired the right person, because the right person will tell you what their KPI should be when they come into the business. You
Sure.
won't have to tell them. You won't have to tell them. They'll tell you, and they'll tell you exactly why that should be their KPI. Number two, you can just ask ChatGPT and it will tell you based on all the available information, like
All right.
what the KPI should be for this role. And as your business gets more mature, you start to install KPIs. You're probably not doing it at 5 people. Like you're probably not installing this at 5 people, but it's an objective scorecard. And at the end of the day too, like you want people to know how they're doing. You don't want to sugarcoat anything. You always want to show people where they stand, because if you don't show them that, it's quite cruel. They don't have the ability to improve themselves, right? If you're not happy with someone's performance, the worst thing you could possibly do to them is tell them that they're doing a good job.
If you're a business, church, school, or nonprofit paying over $90,000 a year in utilities, listen up. One of our clients thought their bills were quote unquote normal until we uncovered $136,000 in refunds they were owed because of mistakes, misclassifications, and missed rebates across their electricity, sewer, gas, and trash. Now imagine what an extra $100,000 could do for your organization. New equipment, new staff, new programs, or simply boosting your bottom line. But there's a deadline. We can only seek refunds for the last 36 months. Every month you wait is money you permanently lose. So schedule your call today at budleiser.com, budleiser.com.
You tell them that they're achieving something, because there's no possible way that they can improve if you're just saying, hey, you're doing great. And behind their back, you're just talking about, oh my gosh, this person sucks.
And you're reinforcing a bad behavior, right? They might have thought they were doing X and that was okay, and you just keep reinforcing that, so they just do more of X.
And by the way, everyone's watching. Everyone else with KPIs that is watching another person fail at their KPIs. And they're watching that and they're seeing that it's okay for someone to fail without consequence.
It's okay to slack off. It's okay to go to Netflix. It's okay to take a nap. Any of these things. And then either they do it or they become jealous, right? That's not good.
Exactly.
Is there a simple metric for, you talked about here, like, hey, I can't give you 100% of the value that you create. And I'll just throw mine out there. I think, and maybe I'm wrong, I'm open to feedback, that an employee should probably be making triple their value. And triple their value because, one, to cover their cost. Number two, to cover the cost of the company and the activities and the rent, electricity, or whatever benefits or costs that go into the company and the position, right? And then number three, of course, is profit, right? So that's kind of a simple, not super refined. I mean, it's 3x. It's not 2.57.37%, but that's kind of an easy benchmark. Do you have something similar that you can share with business owners?
Yeah, I think it depends on the layer
Okay.
of employee. I think someone that is a like individual contributor in the business might be somewhere between like like an associate, like maybe like a 3 or 4x. You should look to create 3 to 4x value of what you're being paid. And obviously, if you have technology built into your business, that 3 to 4x can become 5 or 6 easily, because you have a piece of IP that can help it, which is a lot of what we do. We have a lot of IP that we've built that helps amplify the value of people. One of our core missions is like people plus technology equals magic, and and all that helps. I think the further up in the org, like let's say if there's someone that's managing 5, 6, 10 people, I think someone like that is probably going to be driving 10x their value, right? Like 10 times. And I think if you go up even higher, right, so like maybe like a senior manager or director level, that person might be driving like 15 or 20x what they're paid. So I think like the higher up in the org you go, the larger the value equation gets, because that person has more leverage in the organization.
Right. And also they have to basically be paying for all the people that are underneath them, right? So they need to be driving more value.
Correct. Exactly.
That's great. Now, you mentioned being a very tech forward company. So we got to dive into AI, because that's huge changing topic right now. Everyone's dealing with it. So AI is a huge topic right now, and I want to find out with viral ideas. Is AI currently a co-pilot for your editors, or are you preparing for it to be the pilot as you move forward?
We view it as a co-pilot, and we're building tools and using tools. We're both building and using tools. And my co-founder's whole focus in his day-to-day is to build and construct tools that enhance what people can do, turning people into effectively superhumans with their time. Um, and I think at the end of the day, like one of the like there's a couple points of leverage that you can draw on in business. Capital, community, you know, conversation, and code is obviously a big one. And we view it as if you can get 2 hours of time out of 1 hour of time, right? Like if you're able to compress what someone can do in a bit, like the whole idea of like automating a factory is a perfect example. Like our whole philosophy is like let's put someone else, let's give each employee like a couple AI employees that they can work with on a day-to-day basis. So we're slowly building out. I think the fallacy though is you have to build something that actually saves time in the business and actually creates productivity. It can be very easy for you to look at yourself. And even if you look at Fortune 500s, there's been reports out that AI is actually not necessarily taking jobs yet
Yeah.
out of the economy. Like I've seen a couple of reports because I don't think people have figured out how to implement that AI in a way that actually materially takes away jobs. I'm not going to say it isn't in the future, but yeah, I think it's just creating more net productivity out of the people that are existing in an organization. And it will take jobs from people that don't use AI, just to be clear. I think,
Yes.
but I just like don't think you've seen the massive ripple effects quite yet. I'm going to be
Yeah, we
using AI
are.
as an excuse, to be clear, like to do layoffs. But I don't think it's purely because of AI yet.
Yeah, we are for sure moving forward as a staffing company, making sure that everybody that we bring on and that we place and promote is being AI powered. And so that's a big thing for us moving forward, right? Making sure that they're trained, which tools to use, how to use them, and then also some safety. There's going to be a lot of potential data leaks if you jump on the tools too quickly or use tools that are not in your ecosystem. And you're in the marketing agency, and we're seeing a lot of, I want to say when anything is trending, when everything's in anything, it doesn't matter if it's AI, there's a lot of hype and there's a lot of exaggeration being thrown around. Specific to the marketing agency, what are the biggest lies being told about AI to their clients right now?
I think that the biggest lie that's being told, especially in the video editing today is December 18th in 2025. So if you're listening to this podcast a year from now, things could be totally different. So I just want to date this statement.
Yes. Thank you.
I think like as of today, end of 2025, the biggest lies that are being told in at least my world in video editing is that AI can do everything well, and it can't. It could do some things decently, and you could put together videos with AI, but but that those videos still have to solve for a problem, right? Like, and at the end of the day, I think a lot of people that are claiming to be video editors don't really understand what they're doing. They're creating something that is supposed to share a message, share a story, and solve a specific goal. And I think at the end of the day, like a lot of video editors just like straight up suck, right? Like, and aren't great at what they do. And for your audience, by the way, as a gift, I figured, I'll throw it in there. Like my Instagram is at David Feinman, and if you Instagram message me, time compass and guide, I can send you a guide on how to hire video editors that don't suck. Because like most of them
Nice.
just don't. Most of them just don't know what they're doing. And by the way, this is like a 20-page guide. Like it goes through every step of how to hire someone. So how to hire a video that doesn't suck. But like I think there's just there's so much slop out there with AI that it is a tool that could be used to speed things up. I go through probably 20 or 30 chats on ChatGPT a day. So like I'm a
Mhm.
constant user of it, but you still cannot lose your brain. Like you can't just like, you have to still know and have still have the taste to know what is good and what is not good. And I think that taste is something that you have to refine and get better with over time.
Oh, that's a powerful keyword that you just brought up, which is taste. That reminds me of a conversation I had with a really powerful thought leader. Um, we were talking about AI and what it's going to be like. I mean, if it's this today, imagine what's going to be in 5, 10, 15 years. And we were talking about what is even the place for human work. And we have some serious concerns. We're not just overly optimistic about it. But one of the things he mentioned that could be really big in the future is taste. People being curators for the information. For There's going to be so much music, there's going to be so much art, there's going to be so much videos that you're just going to be bombarded like we were when you went from the 12 channels on your radio antenna to cable, then to satellite, then to YouTube. It's just a bombardment of possibilities. So where do you spend your time? and we predict an increase in the value or necessity or whatever word you want to use here in taste makers or create curators, people who are telling you this video is good, this content was good, that stuff is good. So I think you brought up a powerful word there, and that's go ahead, go ahead.
No, I always just say that we do something of our ideas called the taste alignment, where you align the taste of a client with the taste of a creative, and what it does is allows you to sort of curate what is good and what is not good, and I think that is ultimately what in at least my industry, in the creative industry, is what is going to define a lot of things, and I think like as robots and as AI starts to do more stuff, you're going to need to become a little bit better of a tastemaker and develop that taste for yourself. And there's so many ways you can do that.
That's fantastic. What I want to ask two-part question here, double-sided coin. What excites you the most about AI for the next 5 years? And then what worries you the most about it or concerns?
I think my answer is actually like one and the same. And I'm like a I study history, right? And I just look back in time, and I look at the Industrial Revolution, and I look at like the rise in technology over time. And I always go back to this one fable that I really love. This one story of this small town. It's a fictitious town, by the way. This is sort of like this sort of like illustrates the point I'm about to make. And this town was on a coast, right? Like so, like if you just close your eyes and picture it for a second, you're on a coast, like coast in Maine, or coast on the East Coast. And in this town, there's 100 people, all of which require one fish a day to survive. Every day, everyone in the town wakes up, they take their fishing rods, and they go fish. Then one day, one guy in the town decides that he's going to build this trap to encapsulate 20 fish at a time. Drops it in the water, picks it up at the end of the day. Now there's 20 fish, 100 people in the town. So instead of needing 100 people to fish one fish a day, now there's one guy who can catch 20 fish. So now you only need 5 people in the town to do all the fishing and feed this entire town. And what you might think is, oh, did everyone lose their job as fishermen? No, what started to happen is, some guy figured out how to make a bigger box, and now only 2 people are needed for that. But like one guy realized that he's really good at cooking, and he made the food and cooks up all the food recipes, and really makes some really awesome fish. And another person figures out that, wait, like instead of fishing and spending my time fishing, I'm actually really good at taking care of sick people. Like I'm going to become a doctor, right? Like, and I'm going to specialize. And I think over time, as technology gets better, you don't need as many people to do the exact task. And this if you flash forward to modern day society, there was, they thought that because of AI technology, radiologists, people that read like X-rays and MRIs, they were going to become obsolete. And when you look at what that person actually does, they're actually a diagnostician. There's someone that diagnoses people. And what happened is, instead of the radiologists looking at every single thing, they co-pilot it with AI. And now there's actually more radiologists that need it because the demand for radiology shot up and more testing started to happen over time because the efficiency at which you were able to read a test grew. So ultimately, like, I guess my answer is I'm not really afraid of it because this has repeated itself in history time and time again, that over time humans just figure out where they could be more productive in society. And if there ever comes a postmodern day where like a human is not needed for anything, that will be a very interesting time to live in. But at least from like my point of view and history's point of view, I think it's going to tend to repeat itself, sort of like the Industrial Revolution, or sort of like the illustration of the small town the fictitious small town that I just talked about.
Yeah, sure. That's a great story, by the way. It is actually a powerful story. I do think that we're in a very interesting time because not only are we seeing the rise of AI for all of our digital task and needs, but then at the same time, we're seeing a mass rush from companies like Tesla pivoting from just cars to cars plus robots, and also Boston Dynamics and all the other robot makers that are out there. And so we are going to see not all at once, right? It's going to take time, right? Tesla can make maybe 100,000 robots one year, and then million, and then 10 million, and et cetera. And then all the other robot companies as well, robots for specific industries. So I think most of us are pretty safe for the next 5 years from literally losing the physical labor jobs and the digital jobs. But there is a question still in my mind of let's say the 50 years or faster, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. What will that even be like? it could go really right, and everyone is sitting around being poets and artists and happy and everything. I mean, it could go another direction. Do you have any predictions or thoughts on that? Like if you had to look out, say 30, 40, 50 years instead of so close? For sure, we'll be multi-planetary if we don't blow ourselves up before getting to Mars and the moon and Triton and all these other places. So it could be a crazy next 100 years. We could be busier than ever. Instead of having
I
no
don't know.
job, we could have too many jobs.
I think this question might be a bit above my pay grade, but there's plenty of great Elon Musk interviews that dive into this exact question. If I had to take a stab at it, I would assume that the rate of progress is going to increase because the rate of technology innovation is speeding up rather than slowing down. And I would imagine that at some point there's going to be a point of diminishing returns on human productivity and what humans are capable of doing relative to robots. But will that render humans obsolete? Is the question in all of this. I think instead of spending my time pontificating that, I just think, okay, like how could I at this point party with AI instead of trying to party in a different room?
For sure. Hey, I think we'll still need tastemakers, and we could just have a glorious future. Can't all be bad.
I love that.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. Are there any other questions you want me to ask you? If not, this is a great time to give a nice 90-second plug for your companies and how we can get in touch with you best.
Yeah, and Bud, first, I appreciate being here. This has been a fun hour podcasting conversation. I've enjoyed it. To get in touch with me, I'm really easy to find on the internet. My company is Viral Idea Marketing, viralideasmarketing.com. You can visit us there. Check out the video editing services we offer. If you're interested as well, my Instagram is @David Feinman. Feel free to reach out to me on there with time compass and guide, and I'll send you a guide on how to hire video editors that don't suck. It's really dense, and it's an awesome guide on how you can do that. We've hired hundreds over the years, so we really know that inside and out.
That's fantastic. What are some of the products and services that business owners would want to talk to you about?
We offer a done-for-you video editing service. So if you're in need of video editing, as a lot of companies are, we offer a service that edits videos for companies.
That's fantastic. Actually, as I was looking through and researching you, a word came up, productizing. I might butcher this, productizing services and productizing video editing. Give us your definition and the value of that.
Yeah, I think the future for agencies and the future for that business model is being able to go online and shop for something that's like very clear, right? Like click a button, you get it.
Yeah.
So productizing is essentially just taking something that is custom and turning it into a product as if you were shopping on Amazon. So for us, we productize the ability for you to buy 1 video, 2 videos, 10 videos, or sign up with a retainer for us for, we have some clients that use 6 or 7 editors at any given time. So it's really just like putting a package together and offering a productized version of a service.
That sounds great. Want to ask you, both on a personal level and a business level, what are the AI tools that you're using most nowadays?
The one that I use most frequently is chat. Chat and I have a loving relationship with each other. We talk every single day. I use it both personally and professionally. And I love the tool. I think OpenAI did a great job with that one. That's my main AI tool. Like inside of Viral, we are building a ton of our own internal systems that are a little bit more of like a custom LLM that we're building out. That's like far more complex, and I use those internal tools with a relative degree of frequency. But as far as publicly available tools, I think chat would be my number one.
Gotcha. Fantastic. I want to ask about, if a company already has an internal team for video editing, what are some of the reasons they might want to connect with you, and how can you be a value add for them?
We're for companies that have an internal team already, we're great for overflow work, and we're great as a backstop for teams that even have in-house editors. Like we have some that have in-house editors and they need more resources, and we're there for them. We also offer like technology and domain expertise, right? Like we know what makes a really good video. We've made over 50,000 videos. So even companies that have an in-house team benefit from working with us because they can use our shared knowledge and our ability to move quick to accomplish their goals with video editing. And we actually find that teams that have some sort of video resource in-house sometimes don't have enough of a video editing resource in town. It's the number one bottleneck in video production is video editing. If you record 8 hours of footage, it's going to take you sometimes upwards of 40 hours to edit all that footage down into what you want. Companies even that have an in-house video team often will need some sort of augmented way to work with a team.
That's great. And then on the flip side of that, what about the smaller companies? Maybe they're mom and pop, solopreneurs, real estate agents. Are they too small to engage with you, or what is the best services that you can provide to them? Maybe they don't even have a strategy yet for their video content.
Yeah, we will work with smaller businesses in our business. So like we do work with like the single realtor or the small real estate team. So we will work with small businesses. If you're trying to do it yourself, my favorite suggested editing tool is CapCut. I think and my favorite suggesting filming tool is your phone. I think people try to get too fancy with it and buy an expensive camera and try to use Adobe, and it's just not worth your time and complexity to do all that.
That's fantastic. Um, Another question here. I think my podcast mostly speaks to business owners and would be business owners. But what about somebody who might be at college level still and they want to pursue a career in video editing? Number one, when should they reach out to you, and what do you look for when you're hiring them? Number two, what new tools or AI should they be using? And number three, should they even bother? Is it too late for them? Is AI going to replace them?
The world always has needed storytellers from the time we were cavemen till now, right? Like the world has always needed good storytellers, and I think editors at the end of the day are storytellers at heart. And if you're just starting out in your career as a video editor, my recommendation is to go make. Doesn't matter if you're doing it for free, you should just go make, right? Like, create something that's a personal project that means something to you. Find a business or a person that you can tell a story around and create some edits. The barrier to you doing it is an Adobe subscription, or even an iMovie subscription, which is virtually free on a laptop. Probably even do it on your phone these days if you can't afford a laptop or expensive equipment. So my recommendation is just start there, right? Start making stuff, and once you've developed a portfolio, you can start to go out to companies like mine, our ideas, or you can start to go out and find a career in that. And we are in a very visual industry, so the best way you could show people what you could do is visually. And in my business, we won't hire you until we give you a paid test project. He is paid. I always think it's horrible when companies make people do a test project for $0 and 0 cents. And while we don't pay a ton for the test projects, we still pay for them. I think it's like a very important fabric of our culture here. But a lot of companies might ask you for a test project. You do that test project and you show them what you got. Right? If you are someone who can create something really good, then you'll pass the test project. If you're not, like, we're meritocratic. We barely look at your resume. So like, well, we're gonna see if you're a really good editor, and if you edit well. Like, I don't care. I don't care if you have a degree or what. It just matters that you can edit super well and you're a good all around person that will fit in with our culture.
You actually segued perfectly to my next question, which is, what are the skills? And you can expand this to non-video editors, to anyone in your company or any other roles as well. Besides the hard skills, besides the technical skills, what are the soft skills and culture fit that you think are important? And I hope you'll answer this question not just for the people looking for a job, but also how important is this for the employers, for the business owners out there? Just as another little tidbit here, one of the key things about our staffing agency is we really do need to talk to the managers, not just decision makers, but who's going to be managing the person who is in charge of the culture fit at a company, because that's our specialty. When we do remote staffing, it's not, oh, we found a resume that matches some keywords that you said, so we're going to throw this resume at you and collect a fee. We're very involved. It's a multi-week process to find and filter and vet and test and interview the right people so that when we put a candidate forward, we're really confident that, number one, this is the best top 2% in the market available at your price range. And and very importantly, that this is going to be a culture fit for your company. So which I think, by the way, I'm going to go on a little bit of tangent here, apologize. But I think it's really important in today's society, in today's world, because as more tools come online, as more AI, as more this, as more that happens, you're going to want people that have the culture to stay with your company and to continue to follow you and not bounce ship so often. And I think you must be doing this right, because I think one of the KPIs that you told me as a business owner is you haven't had any voluntary exit conversations in 3 years. So people are not jumping your ship, which means you must be doing something right for culture fit. So tell us, what are some of the soft skills that you as an employer look for? And how should employees be thinking about this, and how should business owners be thinking about this?
So we put very simply, the first part of culture is cult. And we are a group of people that believe and think a certain thing, right? And that thing is
Okay.
written and documented. We have a set of core values, we have a mission, we have a vision. And in our interview process, we're going to make sure you're bought into that. If you're not, doesn't matter how good you are, you can't join the company. So really, like, we're going to test for that culture fit and make sure you fit into the box that we've created, right? And it's okay if you don't. like genuinely, it's not. It's totally fine. There is a culture and a company out there for you, and there's some cultures that are a little bit more malleable than ours. But the way we do business is the viral ideas way.
Now
And there is
I have to jump in. I have to jump in with a question here. I hate to ruin your train of thought, but obviously this person is applying for a job. They want to make money. They got to pay bills. How do you know they're not just lying? And they're like, oh yeah, I totally agree with your vision statement of taking over the world and enslaving everybody. They're just going to say whatever they want to, especially if you're showing it to them, right? You're showing them what they need to lie.
How people signal. It's how people signal things to you. One of our core values is always on time. That means you're always going to deliver projects on time. You're always going to deliver work on time. You're always going to show up to meetings on time. Our meetings are going to start on time. They're going to end on time. Like we like the trains to run on time, but we're very punctual about it. If you show up late to a meeting in an interview, which, believe it or not, candidates do, you're not getting called back for a second interview. Like, you're just not going to at my organization. Like, you just won't. If you are told that you have a test project and we'll ask you, hey, normally we ask for this in 72 hours. Can you do it in 72 hours? If they say, yes, that's fine. Or they say, no, I can't do it in 70 hours, but I can do it in 5 days. We say, okay, no problem. If you deliver that in 5 days, great. If you deliver in 6 days, you're out. Right. So like there's certain things that we look at when we're testing you. Like, we're not just looking at the language you're speaking. We're looking at your behavior, because behavior is a language. And how people behave and conduct themselves in the interview process is super, super, important, right? Like, and we ask them questions like, what was the last book you read? One of our core values is never stop learning, right? Like where do you learn things from? Like, if they say, oh, I learn them from a podcast, then okay, great. We know they like to listen to podcasts, and we know they're learning. We'll ask them what podcast they listen to. So it's really, at the end of the day, you're just looking for behaviors and signals that match the core values. You're not like directly asking them, do you believe in this? Someone can easily say yes or no. You're looking for the behaviors that match the patterns of someone that would go into it. And we also do personality tests. So we do it's like a version of Myers-Briggs that we send people to, and it scores them.
Yeah, sure.
And
that test killed my chance of working at Radio Shack, by the way, which might have been okay.
I think that's totally fine. But what we'll do is we'll take the job description, and we'll take the personality test, and we'll take the test project. We'll feed all that to AI, and we'll ask AI, hey, like, based on this person, like, where do they score? Like, what's their scorecard, and what's their likelihood to fit in with our culture and the role that they have to do? Sometimes it tells us they're not. And sometimes, like, it gives us some more questions to ask them. We're not just going to, like, blindly believe AI, but it gives us questions to ask in the next round of interviews, and things to think about. So
that's really cool.
That's how we do it.
I want to ask one last question here. I think it's the last question. For a business owner that's never thought about it, maybe they've been doing it for a year or two, or especially for a business owner that's just starting, how do they even know what their culture is or will be? Like, what is
really hard?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
In fact, I think back to a few years ago, I kept hearing people talk about company culture. HR is like talking about company culture. And in my mind, I don't think I really even knew what that meant. Company culture.
I think you need to look and have a hard conversation about where you want to go with your business, and where you want to take it, and what your goals and aspirations are with your business. And from there, you can work backwards to figure out what type of culture you need to install to achieve the goals within the business. It's not random. You can't go read the Zappos book on company culture and install the Zappos company culture into your business and expect it to do well. The culture has to be something that you fundamentally believe. And by the way, in every single leadership meeting and all hands meeting, we talk about and teach our core values. They're taught, like they are taught repeatedly over and over again. In a meeting that I had this week, I pulled up our core values. I said, this is the one that I saw. This is why I saw this one this month. Here's someone that did really good with it. In the next slide, we put on a song for 3 minutes, and everyone had to write a story of how they embodied one of the core values in the last month. We beat it into people. Like you don't have a choice but to understand and resonate with our core values. We bring them to life. We create a culture around them, and that those core values help us drive a group of people that kind of think the same way, and kind of not think the same way, because we have people that are creative and think in a lot of different ways, but like that behave in a certain way that is commiserate with the culture that we're trying to create.
That's probably the best answer I've ever gotten out of that one. I appreciate you so much. And I think company culture is incredibly important, right? It's going to determine, because it has to match with the leader, right? At some level, right? It has to be, the leader has to buy into it, has to be, you feel the vibes of it. Are people staying late? Which not every culture needs to be the same, right? Company culture isn't just everybody work extra hard and get paid less. That's not company culture. But
One of your core
what are
values could
people?
be work-life balance. Like
Yeah,
that's
for sure.
acceptable. Yeah.
Right. And for some startups, it's like, hey, we have to, like, I think a big part of your culture that I picked up on here about being on time, it's about hitting deadlines. It's about client, and it probably came from a place where the client expects the video on Saturday because they're launching a major campaign on Sunday. We can't ever deliver a video on Monday because that throws off their entire launch strategy of whatever they're launching, right? Could be a new initiative, a new message, a new website, a new product. They need that video when they need that video. So I think that's a critical part of your company culture and where it came from. And it's fantastic. Your definition was absolutely fantastic. I mean that 100%. And
I
I think
appreciate that, bud.
yeah, I think people need to listen to that, because honestly, 3 years ago, I didn't get it. I didn't understand what company culture is. Now I'm getting it more and more. And every business owner needs to think about what really is their company culture. How do they instill it? Why is it important? Because it's going to transform your business. And if you don't have it, a failure to plan is a plan to fail.
Exactly. And it's something you could pick up on when you walk in the doors. Like, we'll have customers that'll tell us, hey, how do you have so many good people? Like everyone wants to just help me. Everyone wants to just and I'm like, we've just created that environment. Like it didn't happen by accident. And we've collected people that are good people that genuinely want to do a good job with what they're doing. And because of that, we've been able to create this amazing culture inside our business.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for being on the show, David.
Thank you, Bud. I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you. You've been listening to the Time Compass Show with Bud Leiser. I hope our compass has shown you a better way forward. Now, if you've enjoyed this episode, I dare you not to like and not to subscribe. And I definitely double dare you not to share this episode with 2 of your friends who you know that would love this show. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, cheers.